Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, All In Health and Wellness. If you're looking for a health coach, you're looking for a sports performance coach, you're looking for nutrition guidance, like for instance, a meal-by-meal plan that will help you understand how to eat. It will teach you how to eat, and it will give your body, your cells, the proper nutrition to feel great and be able to perform at your best, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. If you're looking for those things, you're looking for the key to improve your sports performance, both from a nutrition standpoint and an exercise physical standpoint and a mental standpoint as you approach your athletic event. All In Health and Wellness is able to help in these areas. Go to allinhealthandwellness.com and you'll find the contact information for how to get in touch with them and get started on the plan that will improve your life. So Stephen, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Jerry. I'm delighted to be on your show. It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I am too, because one of the things that I love is bringing people on that have a personal story that led them to what they're trying to do to help people.
Yeah.
Because the same as in my case, there's a little extra passion and a little extra drive. And for you, like, going back to like, okay, one of the things that you help people with is understanding how that emotional stress impacts their physical health, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
So how does your life, what tied you into that and brought that about? That's like, okay, this is something that people are not paying attention to.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were talking about how your intentions or your thoughts can massively impact the end result. You can create it, right?
Right.
So I've always been interested in that and spirituality and aligning those two things together. So I worked with Tony Robbins for a number of years. And so that was life-changing for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
Psychology and, just exactly what you were talking about, right?
Yep.
How we create through our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
Yep.
And no one's to blame but ourselves, right?
Right.
We want to think it's somebody else or something that happened that created it rather than take responsibility. And I don't know necessarily people don't want to take responsibility. They just don't realize that they're creating it, right? Which is a difficult place to be.
Yep.
And even when you know you're creating it, it's sometimes difficult to remember, right? Because you're pretty sure you didn't have anything to do with it. And it's so deep in the subconscious that you don't realize. And even then you forget. But what happens is when, I have a belief, and I think you do too, that nothing happens to us, everything happens for us.
Right.
Now, in the moment, you can forget that.
Sure,
but what
absolutely.
happens is when you really calm down from it and you go, you know what? I created that. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to figure it out. And then when I can figure that out, I can do something about it.
Yeah.
Rather than feeling like a victim and helpless, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it happened to you and it was their fault and, you don't have control over your life, right?
Right.
So, and I came about that because I went to see Tony Robbins live, right? I already knew of him. I think I bought his audio program and was really impressed by that. And then I went to see him speak and I said, I want to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So then I said about actually going to work for him. So I worked for him for 3 years.
Awesome.
And then he was a big influence on my life. I mean, just going to his events and learning the principles that he was teaching. But he also introduced me to other teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more drawn to the spiritual side of things. Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, which probably a lot of your listeners won't remember, but you will, right?
Yeah.
We're, the big instigators of a movement, if you think about it, really, James Field, Neil Donald Walsh, all those people. And so I left working with Tony and I started doing my own events, 3-day transformational events. In fact, it was called Transformation.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while. Wasn't as easy as it looks, right? In terms of, I can speak and I can inspire and I can do all those things. But for me, marketing was always the challenge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was still doing that. I got involved in investing and in real estate, but bringing that spiritual side to the education on terms of investing. and making sure that people realize that, you can make a lot of money in that business, but that's not going to make you happy, right? The
Right.
happiness comes within.
Yep.
And it comes within with not only going in with things like meditation, but also from your health is so
Yeah.
crucial because, and I think you talked about this as well in the podcast I was listening to, you can get all the health stuff right, or you can be doing all the right things, but if you don't feel good, what's the point, right?
Right. Yeah.
You got to be taking care of your inner self from
Yep.
spiritual, from an emotional, from an intellectual, mental part, but you've also got to be really careful what you put in your body.
Yep.
Tony always used to say, your body's your temple, right? And
Hmm.
treat it that way.
Yep.
Um, so anyway, I was doing all that, and then I met this woman,
Yeah.
right? And everything went sideways, or seemingly so, Jerry.
Yeah.
Sometimes things you think are going wrong are not really going wrong at all.
Yeah.
They're giving you an opportunity to learn something about yourself that you need to learn.
Hmm. Right.
Which is why, I think, sometimes we want to save people from these experiences, right? I mean, people used to say to me, listen, you shouldn't even be in the same state as her, let alone as the same room.
Oh,
She's ruined
wow.
life. So, but you can't tell people sometimes because they can't hear you, because they're so, the book is called The Venus Flytrap.
Right.
And she was the Venus flytrap, and I was the fly,
Yeah.
right? Just drawn to her nectar, and you couldn't tell me anything. But in the end, I learned more from her. She was a master teacher for me. I learned so much.
Yeah.
I also had a blast, right? I mean, she's a five
Right.
foot 11 former international supermodel. How bad could it be, right?
Right. Right.
Well, it got pretty bad. But anyway, but at the end of it all, I'm profoundly grateful for
Yeah.
what I learned. Because what happened to me in that process, I learned that, well, first of all, when you're teaching, sometimes you can I did take on the mantle. Well, I got to be doing all this shit because I can't be telling other people that if I'm not doing it, and
Right.
I know I'm not perfect. And
Yeah.
so you felt a little bit like a fraud, like you're out there trying to be something that you're not really.
Yeah.
And people used to say, "Oh, you're amazing. I love you." And I'm going, "Well, you don't really know me. You just
Yeah.
know that person who's on the stage that's teaching all these principles that
Right.
sounds perfect, that isn't."
Yeah.
So what happened was, in this relationship, she gave me a chance to accept my light side and my dark side,
Mm.
and we have both.
Yeah.
And very often we want to push this dark side of our nature and his nature
Mhm.
down so no one's going to see it,
Right.
and it just gets worse, right? It's like trying to
Yeah.
put water on oil, right? It's just going
Yeah.
to float to the top.
Yeah.
So she helped me see that, and accept myself for who I am.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say that I'm all the way there, right? It's still a process, right? It'll
Yeah.
be a lifelong journey, but I'm so much further along. And what it really gave me was a freedom I've never had before, Jerry.
Yeah.
Like, just feeling like, I mean, I put it all out there in this book. I don't really get a chance to read it, but I mean, I put it all out there. So
Yeah.
at that point, you go, I got nothing to hide anymore, right? What do you want
Right.
to talk about?
Right.
I had
Yeah.
mental illness, I had a sexual addiction, I had all these different things I didn't know that I
Yeah.
had, right? So when you've told all that, laid it on the line, your childhood, how all those things happen, you go, you know what? Well, there's nothing you're going to bring out that I can't talk about. There's
Yeah.
nothing I'm ashamed of anymore, and
Right.
nothing I got nothing to hide, and
Yeah.
that just gives you a freedom that I don't know any way, and I don't know the way you could really get that.
So there's two things that you touched on that I really want to make sure that people understand, and we're going to touch on that freedom because I know Tony talks about that a lot. And ultimately that's what we're, I'm gonna use the word working, but not in the necessarily career sense, but that's what we're working for is freedom, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's what the United States was built on. That's what some,
Yeah,
like, it's like this idea that I can do whatever I want whenever I want, whether it's because I've got the finances or because I've got the health.
yeah.
And sometimes you need both of those. Sometimes you only need one, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes you need the community to be able
Mhm.
to, like, and so that aspect of freedom is I think it's something that so many of us have this idea of what it is, but we don't really know what it is until we experience it. And, like, I can say that from a health standpoint because I do try to be as healthy as possible. And so I get the freedom to do things that other people don't because they're scared of getting sick in these situations, or they're scared of stuff. And
Yeah.
and I've I've got clients that are doctors and they're like, oh yeah, we're doing this and doing that to protect ourselves and all this stuff. And I'm like, bring it on, because I'm healthy. I don't like, my immune system's good. I don't think I'm going to get sick. So I don't care who I talk to when I talk, like
Yeah,
I'll get
yeah.
on a plane when COVID's going on. I don't care. And that freedom to just be able to say, you're not going to impact me in a
Yeah.
negative way
Yeah,
is huge, right?
yeah. I mean, I had the same experience in COVID. People used to say, "Well, we get this and that," and I said, "Well, look," because everyone was like, "Do I take the injection or do I not?"
Mm-hmm.
I would say, "Look, I know that my immune system is strong enough that if it can handle it. I
Right.
know I can handle it, right?" And I was flying all over the place. I had to. I was actually living in Canada at the time, right? And I
Yeah.
had to come back to America to speak, so I had to, go through the when you get back, you have to be checked
Right. Yep.
before
Yep.
you go back out again. Then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I
Yep.
had to do all that over and over again. But it was like I wasn't scared. I really
Yeah.
was. Didn't have any fear about it. No, I didn't also go where I knew people had COVID was either, right?
Sure. Right.
But no, I didn't. I wasn't scared that I would get it. And if I did, I thought I'll be able to handle it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it gives you that confidence. I mean, even if you've got a great mindset,
Yeah.
if you're not healthy inside, you don't have that health, you're gonna get sick.
Right. Yeah. And then you're going to wonder what happened, where'd it come
Yeah,
from? What am I doing? Like, and that old, the saying that, somebody that's healthy has, 99 problems. Somebody that's not healthy has one, it's like,
yeah,
you're struggling and trying to figure it out. And, and that does, and the older we get, the more of those things compound.
yeah, definitely.
The less freedom we have, especially when we might think, oh, I'm retiring from my job and I'm going to have all this time in the day, but then now I'm tied into doctor's appointments or whatever because I didn't take care of my health along the way.
Yeah, and it gets. I mean, can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure you're the same. There's always more to learn, right? There's
Yep.
just so much about. For example, I was listening to your other podcast about toxicity.
Yeah.
The gentleman that came on there, I mean, I'm like, wow, this guy knows so much about it.
Yeah.
And, that we all have toxicity. I'm
Mhm.
going to go see someone about this. Because even it just gives me a little edge.
Right. Yep.
I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 65, right? And I want to have every possible conceivable thing that's going to help me have the
Yep.
energy because I have a zest for life and I want to have
Right.
the energy to live the life the way I want to live it.
Yeah.
Like you just said, go anywhere you want with anybody you want, do anything you want. And I think that's great, but I would even say that Tony gets tired, right?
Yeah.
Even he
Right.
sometimes like, you got to travel, you got to go somewhere. So I
Right.
don't want to make out that everything is perfect,
Sure.
but I can make choices, just like you said, that a
Mhm.
lot of people can't make
Yeah.
because they don't have the freedom of health. They don't have the freedom mentally because they're
Yeah.
living in prison. They don't even realize it's there. They have beliefs that I call transparent beliefs. You can't even see the beliefs. You don't even know
Right.
you have them, but
Right.
they're controlling your behavior, right?
Hmm.
And they need someone, a coach, to be able to help them see those things. And they go, wow, I didn't even realize that. On the
Right.
financial side, there's all kinds of beliefs that taught when we were children
Hmm.
we don't even realize we carry around that limit us in
Right.
what we can do financially, right?
Yeah.
Like I say to people, I like to have a little bit of shock in what I'm saying because then it
Right.
gets people's attention, right?
Yep.
So I'd say, how many people have heard there's no such thing as free money? Of
Yep.
course not, right?
Yep.
That's a lie. There is free money.
Yeah.
Now let me show you but once I've shown you and you've seen it, now you can't go back to the old belief.
Right.
And you realize you were just programmed to believe something that benefited other people, but not
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a process, and I'm sure you go through that and with what you're doing, people believe they're
Oh,
doing the
absolutely.
right things, and now you go, okay, now how do I get this person to
Yep.
realize there's a lot they need to be doing differently
Yep.
without freaking them out, right? So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and you touched on the other thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned, which is, it, I'm a paraphrase sort of what you said, but learning is it's a key lifelong tool.
yeah, yeah,
And you've mentioned that in several different things that you've said about, like I'm continually learning, or I started learning this, or, it's like if we never really know it all.
no, never. The moment anybody thinks they know it all, they're about to take a fall, right?
Yeah. Right.
And especially today, I mean, things are moving so quickly, and you got to
Yeah.
see this in your field, right? That so many new things, new technologies are coming out that are helping people live a longer life, but also not just longevity, but the quality of life.
Right.
Because that's so, I mean, you could live till 200, but you could be sick as a dog and be miserable for 100 years, right?
Right.
But you want to have not just longevity, but quality as well.
Yep.
And that is becoming more and more possible, as I'm sure you're seeing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other piece of it too is and this is, with AI's introduction, it's helping in so many different,
Yeah.
industries, but
Yeah.
it's also showing like, whoa, there's a big learning curve to so many things because everything's moving so rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're still thinking, this was what I learned in the textbook in the 1990s or early 2000s, like, okay, and this is the way it works, like more than likely it's been rewritten
Yeah.
with
Absolutely.
totally new information.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. And it's going so fast, like you said. And I think they say that probably health and nutrition and longevity are going to be affected by AI the most. That's probably going to be the biggest impact, right? Which is amazing. It's wonderful. We're going to live longer, which is great, but you also want to have the quality of life as well.
Right.
Some people look like they wish they were dead now, right? So,
Yeah.
because they don't live a life that they want to live. They're
Right.
living the life that they were told they had to live,
Right.
and that's what drives me, because I know I lived that way. Where I thought I had to have a job, I had to work for somebody else, and just thinking down the road about, retirement, and that's what you got to do. You got to retire. And I was thinking, I'll never be able to afford to retire, right?
Right.
I mean, because it seems like it's in a lot of people's minds that they've got to make such a large amount of money
Right.
to be able to retire and live off the interest.
Yeah.
Which is completely not true, right? It's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
There is a way for everybody. And so understanding that gave me a lot more freedom too, So I am passionate about, I guess you call it paying it forward, right? Is what we'd say
Right.
now.
Yep.
Because someone did it for me, right?
Yep.
So if I can do it for other people as well. Another thing that I learned from Tony is that, the secret to living is giving. You'll never get fulfillment out of giving to other people. It's the secret, the secret sauce, if you like.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually something that when I started my business and entrepreneur journey, almost 10 years ago, I had a mentor come alongside and say, okay, you need to do this. Like, you need to jump out. You need to do it on your own. You're like perfectly primed for it. And of course it's scary as anything. Right. And cause you're like, hey, I've got a guaranteed paycheck coming in, and then going to like, I got all the freedom in the world because I don't have any clients yet, which means I don't have any money yet. But one of the things that she told me was, she was like, volunteer as much as you can.
Yeah.
Early on, volunteer as much as you can. And so I was on so many different committees for the city and the school district and just out and about in the community, just doing whatever I could because I had the time to. But it introduced me to so many people. And now, like, I laugh because I hardly ever have time to go to any networking stuff.
Yeah.
But when I do show up at something, somebody will be like, man, you're everywhere. And I'm like, I haven't been anywhere in like 6 months. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But that just, they still see that as a part of who I am. And now that there's so many people talking about me in my community, that like, it's flipped to the other side. And in that giving back, I think it does, it pays dividends that are huge in the future.
Yeah. And so many people misinterpret things that, so for example, people have this thing in their head that when you give, you shall receive, right? Mm-hmm. And you shall receive, I don't know whether it was 10 times more than you gave, right?
Right.
And they think if they give $10, they're going to get 100 back.
Right.
And they're disappointed. And I'm like, no, you're misunderstanding.
Yep.
That when you give for the sole purpose of giving, not to receive, not give someone $10 so you can get $100. That's not really giving, right?
Right.
That's like a transaction, right?
Yep.
But when you truly give of yourself, of your soul, of your knowledge, then in the instant you do that, there's no wait, there's no waiting for the mail to come. Right. You immediately feel a sense of fulfillment that is 10 times more than what you've given.
Right.
It's instantaneous. Right.
Yep.
I understand. Yeah.
And that goes back to that emotional stress, right? Because that's one of those things that and I've heard people talk about it as like a bank checking account, or you're trying to make a deposit and, deposit so much in your emotional account before you have any withdrawals and all that kind of stuff. But it's really like you're doing those things to counterbalance that emotional stress of the negative things that are happening to you. Because yeah, there's no way to fake that feeling of I just volunteered or donated my time to help someone, and the joy of seeing them smile, or knowing that they were able to, then move forward with something that they were stuck in their life. And just being able to have that, whether you get the card in the mail that says thank you so much for doing da 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 da, like, or not,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You don't need that. It's just
No.
your brain just knows how to wire that and feel it, and it helps boost your health.
Yeah. I heard a story. It's not really a story, but apparently Mother Teresa was talking to someone, I think, and they said they were so depressed, right? And they said, "What should I do?" And she said, "Go find someone who needs help and
Mhm.
help." That was it. Just go find
Yep.
someone and help them, you know? I thought,
Yep.
wow, so profound,
Hmm.
right? Because how could you be depressed when you're doing something for somebody else and
Right.
helping them in need, right?
Yep.
And that's obviously why she became so addicted to it, right?
Sure.
Her
Right.
life became about that, right? And she
Yeah.
recognized that that's what we're all here to do, really, in one shape,
Yeah.
form, or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things you mentioned, and I think this is so true, but you talked about trauma, and how it impacts us. And and I'm sure it sounds like you experienced that trauma will store in your body and
Oh,
come
yeah.
back out later on,
100%. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't go away. It
Yeah.
just gets stored in these cells of the body,
Yeah.
right? And then, people don't understand why they behave a certain way. Why did I get so upset then? That wasn't really a big deal. What was going on? Well, it
Right.
was touching on those traumas
Hmm.
or trauma that's in the cells of your body, and you gotta figure out a way to deal with it. If it's taking ayahuasca or whatever the hell it is, right? Whatever you need to
Right.
do to get it out, because that will free up, and you'll have more energy.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, to me, the bottom line of it is forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
It is the pathway to love. But what a lot of people think is, which is part of it, well, I've been angry at this person, I got to forgive them. But when you do all that, you realize that in the end, it really comes down to forgiving yourself, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the biggest one, that you can
Mhm.
forgive yourself uh, for whatever it is you think you've done, right?
Yeah.
To
Right.
transgress, you know?
Yep. Because that's a big piece of it. If you don't, that you can forget for a time being,
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
right?
You can get
But
distractions that take you away from it. Yeah.
right. And of course the world right now is full of distractions, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No
oh my
kidding.
gosh, attention spans are horrible.
Yeah.
And so finding that avenue to practice, whether it's meditation or deep breathing or, prayer time, whatever you want to call it, but finding that time away from all the distractions,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
being able to, like, both from a mental and emotional side, but also physically, like, be in touch with your body and figure out, like, okay, what's hurting? Why am I in pain? What is going on? What am I not? What am I not dealing with? Right?
Yeah.
What am I not confronting?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned meditation. Um, and so sometimes people say, meditation, what's the point?
Mhm.
And I say, well, let me ask you this. Would you go for 7 days and not take a shower or wash your face? They go, of course. Well,
Right.
how can you cleanse the external part of your body but not understand your inner self
Hmm.
needs to be taken care of, needs released too?
Right.
Because every day you're just running around, running around, and running around, and running around, you're not giving your body and your mind a chance to let go of stuff. You're just pushing
Right.
more and more down inside you.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Plus, you'll live longer, you'll feel better, you'll have
Hmm.
more, and all those other things
Right.
as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, just a thought when you mentioned that.
Yep. Well, and I've had someone on talk about yoga and how that can help with overcoming trauma if you're in the right kind of class and the right kind of, and and I think that and you've sort of touched on this a little bit earlier too, but there's this fear that we have internally of failing. There's this, this fear of not living up to, whether it's society or someone specific, that we, have this ideal that we have to be a certain level or a certain achievement, success, that,
Yeah.
to be able to be, valued, if you will. And
Yeah.
like,
To meet the impossible things that we're told we need to be in life,
right.
to be accepted, to be successful, and all those
Yep.
things, you can't do it. Or all the things we
Right.
have to have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just being sold all the time. If you don't have this, if you don't have the right car, the right house, the right
Yep.
wife, the right girlfriend, the right husband. And so you're trying to, it's like the plates, on the top of the bamboo poles, trying to
Yeah.
spin them all the time. And eventually you realize, I can't do it, right?
Right.
And then we come crashing down, and then we're in hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so taking that time, and this is one of those things that I you mentioned about, finances and the things that we learned early, and we stick to, that don't really work or don't really apply.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many other things too, like, little boys don't cry,
Hmm.
things like
That's
that,
a,
where it's
that's
like,
a terrible one right there. That's one of the worst, right?
yeah,
Well,
because like, if you've got stored trauma and you do meditation or yoga or whatever it is, and you do it correctly, you're going to cry. It's going
yes.
to bring it out. And that's
And it's
probably
okay.
it's the most
Yeah,
healing thing you can do at that point.
absolutely. I think most guys are dying to cry. They're just scared
Yeah.
because of what people will think of them
Yep.
if they cry. And it's a perfectly natural thing it's a release of energy,
Yep.
right? And those tears are some of those cells that have got trauma in them. You're
Yep.
releasing it. Yeah, yeah. But of
Yep.
course, it's education, right?
Yeah.
People are taught the wrong things, and they don't know. I mean, why would you not believe your school teacher? Why would you not believe your parents? Why would you not
Right.
believe the people in the community that are admired and respected? It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough, but there is a way. I think at some point, which goes back to what I was saying before a little bit, is that sometimes we're just meant to go. Sometimes we're just meant to go through it, right? We need
Sure.
to go through it to get that understanding. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things you said in the first place is that sometimes you need to have the experience,
Right.
right? You need it because there's only so much you can do with what people tell you anyway, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to go through it.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that we try to help people who are ready to make the change,
Yeah.
but we're not attached to the people who are not,
Right.
right? It's like, uh, you know, sometimes on the macro scale, as a country, we go into other people's country and we try and get them to accept our way of living, which is like,
Right.
it's not meant to be,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
people will kill you.
Oh yeah.
They will kill you because their consciousness is not ready for that yet. You're
Right.
going into a different dimension, a different world where they're going through their process
Mhm.
to get where they need to be. And
Yeah.
you coming in there is like someone coming from, 2000 years in the future and saying, okay, look, this is how we do things. And people are like, that freaks them out, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and the same thing, sometimes we want to help people. We've got to make sure we're helping someone who is ready to be helped.
Right.
And some people get so focused on helping, they're trying to push somebody who's not ready. You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
think about the wheel of life. I think in our natural state of being, we're all enlightened. There's nobody more enlightened than anybody else, right?
Right. Right.
But we come into this existence, into this experience at different levels of awareness. So we've forgotten what we need to forget to have the life we need to live, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't help someone who's just a little bit behind you on the ladder and help them up because they're ready to come up the ladder.
Hmm.
But if they're not, it's okay. Let them have their own experience, right? Let's not
Right.
interfere with that. It's not easy to make that distinction, but
Yeah.
I think it's part of what we have to do, right? We have to know
Right.
whether they are or they aren't. And when you're talking to someone, there's some people just going to be shut down, right? There's nothing you
Yeah.
can say. They're not going to do what you're suggesting, so you just got to let it
Right.
go.
Right. Yep. And that's, and I think that's why I like to coach versus teach,
Yes. Yeah.
because, coaching wise, I can come alongside somebody and be like, okay, here's some ideas, here's some thoughts, here's some, what do you think? And like, but you got to get there yourself.
Yeah. You can't
Right.
say, listen, don't come back here until you've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and because I know, like, I can talk to, athletes about like, okay, I've experienced this. This is what you're going to experience. This is what's going to happen. But like, prepare yourself for it. But I can't tell you, hey, this is exactly how you do it.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
you get to that point and pain starts coming or physical starts coming or the other person's just a little bit better and you start questioning yourself, like you got to have your own game plan at that point of what's going to make you push through,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's,
I'd be interested, Tony worked with athletes a lot.
Mhm.
And I'd be interested to wonder or to ask you this question. Do you think it's easier to work with athletes because they're more open, because it's so important for them to be at, top have health excellence,
Mhm.
to coach them than it is someone from the general public?
I mean, I think it is. I don't know how much of that is because I'm an athlete, and so
You
I
understand
can
that? Yeah.
I can understand that mindset. But I will say this, like, so I'm this summer will be 10 years that I blew out my knee in a water skiing accident and completely ruptured my PCL, grade 3 MCL tear. Like I did some damage on it, and I go into to to physical therapy for my first visit, and I show up and I'm in my running shorts, I'm in my shoes, I'm like, and the guy goes, "Well, we're just gonna evaluate it to see where it's at." I'm like, "Well, we did the MRI. You got that? Let's go."
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes, "Okay, well, let's just go through the paperwork and let's." He goes, "Okay, so what's your goal?" And I said, "My goal is to run a half marathon in 5 months." And he looked at me and he was like, "Okay." He goes, "I'll do the evaluation, but I can't be your therapist." And I was like, "Okay, what did I say?" He goes, I've never been an athlete. I don't understand the concept you just said."
Uh-huh.
He said, "I can't work with you." And I applaud him because I'm like, he
Yeah.
knew I
Honest.
would I would chew him up.
Yeah.
And so he moved me to a therapist who had some experience as being a runner. But I still pushed her beyond
Yeah.
because there were times where I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like, let's just, and specifically one time where I was supposed to see her on a Thursday morning. That Wednesday night, I was at my church and I didn't have anything to do for like 20 minutes. And so I started walking up the stairs and I wasn't cleared to do that yet, but
Right.
I did like 10 flights of stairs
Yeah.
and showed up the next morning for the therapy session. And she goes, "Okay, I think today I want to walk up a couple stairs and see how you do." I was like, "I did 10 flights last night."
Yeah.
And she was like, so I went up like 5 or 6 stairs, came back down, and she goes, "Okay, check mark, let's go on."
Yeah.
You know, and so that other guy that would have totally
Yeah.
thrown him off. And so
You
you know,
you
there
re
did
you yeah, you recognize that you were not the average person or
right,
even the average athlete, right?
right,
You had the drive and already the health
yeah,
meant you could go beyond what they would normally expect for a human body to be able to tolerate. But you knew that in yourself, which is that's
yeah,
power. That's power right there.
right.
That's yeah.
And so I think that's saying it that way is a little bit more of like, okay, I think the people that I work well with and that I see have the biggest transformation early are the people that are driven and have that internal power and that have already come to the point of there's no turning back. I've got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that because a lot of people would say there's a lot of things that I couldn't do that I did anyway, and I knew I could,
Mhm.
and I knew that most people couldn't, but
Yeah.
I had that level of the strong will, the determination, the
Right.
persistence, and the drive
Yeah.
to do that,
Yeah.
Um, and as you get older, I mean, I don't know how young you were, probably pretty young, but I think I've always known that about myself. If I got into a business, whatever business it was, I always excelled.
Yeah.
Uh, and back then, it was really, it was probably more than anything to prove something to my father back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know how boys are and fathers are.
Yep.
But it's funny because, my father sold his business to another company and I went to their head office, which is it was a big company that they sold to.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm in their boardroom and I go and there's like a buffet or something, you go get something to eat. And the chief executive officer came over and was standing next to me. And he said to me, "Oh, nice to meet you." He said, "Your father's told us all you're doing so well." And I said, "Well, he could have told me." You know what I mean?
Yep. I
So
totally know that. Yep.
it was a moment when I just like, wow, maybe he's just being tough on me because he thinks it's going to make me stronger, right?
Right.
I
Right.
realized that. And then one day, um, because and I don't make the kind of money I made when I met this girl, right? I was living in a mansion. I was making $1 million a year. I had all kinds of cars and toys, none of
Yep.
which made me happy. I'm so
Yep.
much happier now because I don't have those possessions. They
Right.
don't possess me, right?
Yep.
I have so much more freedom, right?
Yep.
But I'd done well financially. And he was in my house, and he said to me one day, he said, "I just want you to know I'm really proud of you." And I thought, well, there were days when I really wanted to hear that,
Yeah.
but now I don't need to hear it. But I
Right.
didn't say that to him, but I
Right.
I
Right.
realized that in myself and went, wow, I think I spent so much of my life trying to get that.
Right.
And then when I realized I didn't need it anymore, it came anyway. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yep.
I didn't feel like I needed it, but I appreciated it. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Um, no, it sounds like my dad and I had the same type of relationship, but
I wondered,
um,
right? Yeah.
because I remember I placed second in a national race, and so I messaged him because he wasn't on social media or anything at the and so I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, Dad, can you believe this? I got second, in a nation, blah blah blah." And his initial right back was like, "Oh, were there two people in the race?"
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
And so I was like, "Okay, I got it. Yep." I mean, then the congratulations came after that, but the
Yeah,
initial was like, and I was like, "Okay, yep." Um, and but it's so true that those little things that we hear, and you mentioned earlier, was it teachers or parents or whatever, but
yeah,
those little things that if we can't allow ourselves to have the freedom to say those things don't define who I am,
yeah,
right? That
yeah,
what I'm searching for, what brings me joy, what brings, what passion I'm about, like those things, and can I do those and be healthy and and live the life that I want, then those other things, they're they're nice when they come,
mhm,
right? But
yeah,
they're not something that we're striving for.
right. Yeah, and the money and all those things came for me as a result of doing something I loved. I
Right.
wasn't doing something to make money. So the money
Right.
came in.
Yeah.
But also, when you, like I said, when you get all these things, they don't free you up. They possess you, right? Because you've got
Right.
to be doing stuff to keep them, and you got
Yeah.
to you got to make a certain amount of money every month to keep them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and people used to say to me, "God, you got all this, you're doing really well. You got all this stuff," and they would say, um, "But what if you lost it?" And I say, "That'd be fine. I'd be the same person, exactly the
Right.
same. I'm not attached to, I'm not attached to any of it. I
Yeah.
know that things will come, and I know that they will go.
Right.
Nothing is forever."
Yeah.
And I always think about the Buddhist monks that create those mandalas, right? They're so
Hmm.
beautiful. It takes them a week to make it,
Yeah.
and then they just take it out to the river and they throw it in the river, right?
Right.
Because everything is temporary, even the
Yep.
most beautiful things. So I've always had that belief, and so sometimes my father would say, "Well, don't you miss this and that?" And I go, "No, I don't. I don't miss it at all, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it back. I've had
Yeah.
it. I enjoyed it. It was wonderful,
Hmm.
and now I have a life that I love. I love
Yeah.
this life, so I don't need
Yeah.
that stuff." Which is, some people say, "Oh, you're just saying that because you don't have any more." Well, you can believe it or believe it not. But if you
Right.
actually talk to people who've known me through both, they'll say, "Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's no different."
Right. Well, and because there's just like there's this is with people, with possessions, with everything, is that there's a time and a place in your life for those things, and some are longer than others, some are short, like some
Yeah,
have a bigger impact, some are daily things, some are it's there's just a flow. And if you understand that flow and don't get tied into things too much, to go like, oh, if I don't have this, I'm
yeah,
not going to be the same
yeah.
person.
Yeah. So for me, what I realize about life is that the most important thing is you have purpose. Without a purpose, you die, right?
Yep.
Simple as that.
Yep.
You're just gonna atrophy. Um, and you don't need stuff to have a mission, a vision, and purpose in your life.
Right. Right.
No, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having nice things.
Sure.
They're there to be enjoyed and they're beautiful. But the question is, what have you got to give up to get that?
Yeah.
What have you got to give to keep it?
Right.
Is that worth it?
Yeah.
And in some cases, maybe it is, and that's great, and that's your journey, right?
Right.
But I know what it takes to get that stuff, and I know what it takes to keep it. And
Yeah.
in the end, I was like, this is freaking exhausting, right?
Yeah.
And it's just trying to keep an image,
Mhm.
to a large extent. Although I
Yeah.
have to say, I mean, I was married and I wasn't wasn't going out in flashy cars or doing flashy things. And I enjoyed those things for what they were. So it wasn't really necessarily about that. But
Yeah.
um, it can be about that. It
Oh,
can be
absolutely.
an image of what you want people to think about you and be respected and all those kind of things, which none of those things will ever give you.
Yeah.
Never those things will ever give you. But that sometimes is something you have to experience to know.
Right. Yeah. And to go through those trials and tribulations and and that's one of the things about life is that there's going to be trials, whether it's a health trial or financial trial or a relationship trial or there's going to be multiple of those throughout your lifetime.
Yeah,
And
but those things are what define you, though. Those are things
yep.
that give you the strength, the courage, the determination to keep going and knowing that as it could, however hard it gets,
Mhm.
you can get through it.
Yeah.
And everything, I've reinvented myself, probably you too, right? I remember when you were
Hmm.
talking about that, your knee and everything, you had to reinvent yourself,
Yep.
and I've done it like you many times. And once you've done it once, you can do it again, right?
Yep.
You know that you have that capability, which again gives you a confidence. So
Yep.
when you're talking to your clients, they don't need you to say, I'm sure, I've done this or I've done that. They already
Right.
know just by your
Right.
presence, by the way
Yep.
you walk in, the way you talk to them, the
Hmm.
things you say. You don't have anything to prove.
Right.
You're just being you,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah. And so it makes it different in you know so many people because I live in a smaller community. What the Waco area is a smaller community. It's in I think we're pushing 300,000 people in the county. So it's big but not huge.
Yeah, yeah,
But people it's big enough that people are like you're different. You do
yeah,
things differently. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like you
yeah,
don't have to. I'm like, I don't have to like. I had a mom of an athlete I was training the other day that was like the athlete was doing their little cool down and she just looked and there were a couple other coaches that were out in the area doing trainings with their athletes and she just looked at me and she goes, do you ever just look at other coaches out here and just think they're doing that all wrong?
yeah,
And I was like, well, yeah. She
uh,
goes, yeah, because like I see what you do and then I see and I'm like, I can tell that that's not right
yeah,
because she says I could see the stuff that you've done with my son and how he's improved and what they're trying to do and like I can see that's not right. Does that ever get to you? And I was like, no, because everybody's got their place and everybody's going to learn the different techniques and everybody knows what they know and I've had other people tell me like how do you know what you know? And I'm like, well, I'm constantly learning and I think it's just a God-given gift.
yeah,
Sometimes I can't explain it, but I just look at somebody and go, if you change this, you're going to be a better athlete. And
yeah,
they're like, how did you see that? I'm like, I don't know.
yeah. It reminds me of there's a famous and I don't know, maybe some of your viewers may or not remember this, but there was a moment, and I used to have a store that sold all the NFL, NBA,
Mhm.
MLB, NCAA T-shirts and hats and all those things. So
Yeah.
I watched a lot of American sports, right?
Right.
And I loved it. But there was a moment, and I know you remember Michael Jordan, right?
Yep.
And playing the Utah Jazz, and he was in one of the playoff games.
Yeah.
And at one point, he threw like a three-pointer from
Mhm.
well outside the three-point area,
Yeah.
and it just went straight in the net, right?
Yep.
It came now he was running back to
Yeah.
be point guard, right? And he went past, they have all those people there that are sitting there
Yep.
that are doing all the analytics and everything.
Yeah.
And they all looked at him and he just went,
Yeah.
I don't even know how I do it, right? I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
I just do.
Yep.
And Tony he said Michael Jordan could always do that.
Yeah.
He could always, but he had to do it enough times to just know he could do it.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And so it wasn't even something you had to give thought to anymore,
Right.
you know? And I thought, wow, that's probably true for most of us in more things in life, right?
Oh
That
yeah.
we have the capability already.
Mhm.
the God-given gift, but we have to work that gift.
Right.
So it's a combination of two things, right?
Yeah.
These gifts have been given to us, but it's up to us to take those gifts and develop them to the point where we can
Right.
express them fully, right?
Yep. And when we do that, there's a, at least in my experience for me, the joy that comes out of that is far beyond
Oh,
anything,
yeah.
you know, and now people ask me like how much time do you actually work? Because people see me at the different parks that I train at, like, pretty much every day of the week I'm out there with somebody and at different times of day. And
Yeah.
of course, like in the summertime when the weather's nice, and I'm like, I don't work. And like, what are you talking about? I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You've retired because
I
you're
know.
doing what you love to do,
Like,
right?
I don't feel like it's work. I don't
Yeah.
like,
You get up every day,
and
you're excited about it. Yeah.
yeah, and because it's that joy that you get, and when you find that, and that's tied to your purpose,
Yeah.
then in a way you become invincible,
Yeah. Yeah.
like to life's struggles and pressures and all of those things.
Yeah. I just remind us we were talking of a story. I can't remember who told me, but it's a good story. I probably embellished it a little bit. But anyway, there's this minister that gets an assignment to be the minister at this church that's out in the countryside.
Hmm.
So he's driving there Sunday morning, and it's a beautiful sunny morning, and he's driving down this country lane, and he comes around this bend, and there in front of him is this beautiful farmhouse.
Yeah,
The lawns are manicured. There's flowers hanging outside the windows, and this driveway that's perfectly. Um, the stones are perfect, and on the other side of the road is the farmer in his tractor
hmm,
plowing the field.
right,
So he decides to pull over on the side of the road for a minute, and he's kind of, just brushing his hair back. And then the farmer gets closer and he says, "Well, my son, God has certainly given you a beautiful farm."
hmm,
And the farmer said, "Yeah, but you should have seen this place before I got here." Co-creation, right?
yep,
Yes. God made the farm, and then he took the farm, and he
yep,
took it like it was a gift, like it was his temple, like he took
yep,
good care of it, and he helped to develop it. And I think
right.
that's a good metaphor for life, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't, whether it's health or finances, or there's this idea that like, oh well, you're lucky because you have good genes, or you're lucky because you came from a family that already had money established, or
Yeah,
and luck doesn't have anything to do with it, because and then that's one of the things that we're learning through, with all this technology and everything, right? Like
yeah,
the way that genes working, and like, okay, well, you might have this gene that allows you to do this, but are you turning it on or turning it off? Are you using
yeah,
it,
yeah,
right? Are you working it correctly?
yeah,
And the same thing with finances, because you can have somebody that comes from dirt poor, like Tony,
yeah,
and becomes somebody who can then financially do whatever they want in life.
yeah,
um and so it's that correlation is, I throw that out, because it's like there's people that say that to me, and like, oh well, yeah, but you're healthy, and then because you've got good genes, and da, da, da. I'm like, you don't see the 2.5 hours of work I do every day to keep it this
yeah.
way,
Keep it that way, yeah.
right?
Tony taught me this acronym for luck: labor under correct knowledge.
Yeah.
The more you labor under correct
Yep.
knowledge, the luckier you seem to get, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
know? Yeah.
Very true.
So, yeah, it's like we said, it's just got to work it and be
Yep.
passionate about it. And that's, like Tony says, live with passion. I'm the same way. You got to find something that you're passionate about,
Right.
because doing something you hate to make money, what's the
Yeah.
point? You're
Right.
giving most of your life to doing something you don't want to do to get fragments of life when
Yeah.
you can buy stuff that you don't even really need, right?
Right. Right.
Instead of finding what you're passionate about and recognizing that if I'm passionate about this and I'm learning so much and I share that with people who want it, then that's where the money will come from. Now, I didn't
Right.
realize that consciously when you first start doing it. You just do it because you
Sure.
love it, right? But
Sure.
you realize it does start to come. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It can be
Right.
whatever it is where you are living the lifestyle that you want to live.
Yep.
And like you said, then you're not working anymore.
Yeah.
You're free, right? You're free.
Yep. Yep. Um, And one of the other things that I think, and it's, again, this is so true with relationships, it's true with finances. It's, you know, those things come to you when you're ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you and I, we both know people, and maybe ourselves, that have been the person that, like, earlier in life been like, God, I wish I had a girlfriend. I wish I had that person. I wish I had this. I just
Oh,
can't
yeah.
find I can't find love. I can't find,
Yeah.
and then when you stop thinking about it and searching for it, all of a sudden it plops right down in front of you.
Yeah. Because you don't realize that when you're thinking that way, I gotta have this, I gotta have that. You're coming from a place of scarcity.
Right.
You're thinking there isn't enough, right?
Yeah.
And so all you can do is create that reality for yourself over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. And
Yeah.
when you don't necessarily, you're not consciously aware that you'd like to have that, it
Mm-hmm.
can flow into your life just naturally.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I was just thinking about the book and I was thinking, well, that's all well and good, but all that flew out the window when I met this woman. But anyway, which makes it even funnier, right? Because you go,
Yep.
well, I got this, I got that, and then you go, well, how the hell did you do this then?
Yeah.
And then you realize that, like you said earlier, none of us are perfect. We've all
Right.
got flaws, we've all got frailties, and it was time for me to learn that and accept it,
Mm-hmm.
accept myself. And so, although it was traumatic, it was traumatic, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it took me to a place I wouldn't have got to without it.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
I'm very grateful that I had that experience. I'm very grateful she came into my life. And you probably heard this. There are some people that are just master teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a master teacher.
Yeah.
She's given up her enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
right, of who she really is to be someone who she needs to be to help teach others, mostly men,
Yeah.
right? How to be able to do this. So I'm so grateful to her for doing that.
Yeah.
And in the end, it wasn't, because people go, man, you put up with so much. How did you put up with stuff? And I said, because I loved her.
Yeah.
I loved the essence of who she was. I
Right.
loved that she didn't make any excuses for who she was. She was authentic,
Yeah.
So I think I told you her father, I might have told you this. Her father was a billionaire. She didn't care. She didn't,
Yeah.
she disowned him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't want any of the money. She didn't want any of that.
Right.
She just wanted to be and be loved for who she really is, which is what we all want, right?
Right.
And
Right.
be accepted with the frailties and all. And
Yeah.
somehow, for whatever reason, I was able to do that. And she never believed that she could be loved.
Yeah.
And the reason, you can probably guess anyway, she had a very traumatic childhood, and her father was very emotionally shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. So, and he put her in an asylum when she was 16,
Oh, wow.
and she couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So that just severed any kind of relationship she was going to have.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if for a girl, or even a guy really, but for a girl particularly, if you don't believe your father loves you, then how can you believe
Yeah.
anybody could ever love you?
Right.
And she was just so beautiful that
Yeah.
she attracted men like flies, like me, right?
Right.
Um, and most of them eventually just couldn't deal with her,
Yeah.
would leave. And in her mind, it was because you just wanted me for sex. And so you're going to want me for that. I'm going to screw you over.
Right.
Right. So whenever
Right.
she was in a relationship, her goal was to destroy you.
Yeah.
Right. The Venus flytrap. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And she tried so hard, but somehow I kept getting away. You couldn't believe it. Right. I
Yeah.
used to get the situation and I'd turn it on her because the situation was just open for me to be able to do that, for me to get away. But I would
Yep.
always go back. And she was like, why is he back?
Yeah.
How come he hasn't broken up with me? Well, first of all, because she was a genius herself, right? She could always twist everything around to be in
Yeah.
her favor. But it just completely confused her.
Yeah.
And so in the end, she did fall in love with me because she knew I loved her.
Right.
But if he's willing to go through all of this with me, then he loves me.
Right.
Right? Accepted her, forgave her. Now, I didn't make it that easy every time. I mean, I'd feign I'm going to break up with you. There's no way we're going to be back
Yeah.
together, right? But
Right.
she knew I was going to cave, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, it wasn't that I wanted to break up with her. I mentioned to you that we're both crazy, and I told you I had mental illness when I was a kid. I was
Yep.
diagnosed as being well, back then it was manic depressive in England.
Okay. Yep.
And they put me through ECT, through
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. and they bring you down with drugs until you're just so far down. Then they say, now you're normal.
Right. Yeah.
They throw you out. And I was depressed for years. But anyway, so I went through these ups and downs throughout my life. But she had something much more serious than that. She had I don't know if you've ever heard of this borderline personality disorder.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really, really terrible.
Yeah.
It's about every psychological issue you could think of, right?
Right.
And it's not curable.
Yeah.
It's treatable,
right.
but it's not curable. And the only reason I found that out, which helped me understand her at a much deeper level, is my friend who was in the book a lot with me, Jerry. He was like my savior, right? He would always go reason to me. Not that I would often listen to him, but he was my reason. Anyway, it was Christmas time, and he bought me a gift, which is a stack of these like 6 books you can buy in a bundle, about psychology. So he goes, I know you're into this shit. Here you go. You have They go, great. So one of the books caught my eye, and it's called "I Hate You, Don't Leave Me."
Oh.
And it's all about cases of borderline personality disorder. I'd never even heard of that before, even though I'd worked with Tony. He'd never talked.
Right.
And as I'm reading it, I'm going, oh my God, that's her.
Yeah.
Almost to a T, right? Yeah. About father, all that stuff. And there are 9 symptoms, and I went to the next, so she's got all 9, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But I heard when I read it's treatable, I converted that into it's curable.
Right.
And it wasn't until a little bit further down the road, I learned that it's not.
Yeah.
And that even though it's treatable, you have to go to therapy at least 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she would never go to therapy. She'd been in that. I tried that with her, right?
Right.
She'd been in an asylum when she was 16. She had terror about anything like that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And I don't blame her. But then I had to realize that I was beginning to lose my mind.
Yeah.
Literally, I was going insane. And I realized I couldn't really help her. I couldn't cure her. I couldn't put her in a position. Her father said to me once, he said, Stephen, look, you could put the 10 best psychologists in the world together and she will run rings around them.
Right.
There was just no way through. He said, she's so damaged, unfortunately. There's no way.
Yeah.
So in the end, I had to let her go, right? Which was really hard. Can you imagine? This is
sure. Yeah.
But there's nothing you can do, and you have to let them go. So people will be thinking, well, you broke up with her again because she was so crazy. Well, no, it wasn't that. It was just that there was nothing that we could do and nothing that I could do. And if I didn't let her go, I would just go further down.
Right.
The road of self-destruction, because she wasn't destroying me. I was doing it to myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was letting it happen. And I'd done it for as long as I could.
Yeah.
So it kind of tragic, really. But that's life. You've got to make decisions and choices with the information you have available to you, right?
Right. Well, and you got to do it without too much concern about what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
About are you making it right or wrong? Because it's too many people make decisions, with what they need to buy or what they eat or anything, like based on what other people think.
So true.
They should be doing, and it's like, no.
Or even live their life the way other people think they should live their life, right? Marry who they think they should.
Yeah.
Like that, so true.
Yep. So, well, Stephen, we're at an hour and I want to be conscious of your time. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, get the book and that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the easiest way is just go to my website, which is vft23.com.
Okay.
And all my social media links are all on there. There's a lot of free stuff on there. You get a free copy of the book on Kindle.
Awesome.
And some other bonus books on there too, which are pretty cool. I will say, you're probably going to say, well, he's going to say that because he wrote the book, but it is an amazing book and it's an incredible story. It's funny because my English humor comes out, my English sarcasm is almost every page. So it's funny, it's exciting, it's an adventure. You never know what's going to happen next. Yeah. And it's like a roller coaster. And in the end, you'll be like, God, I'm so grateful for my own sanity. But along the way, there's a lot of times that people will self-reflect, see themselves, and hopefully get some healing out of it too. Yeah. So yeah, vft23.com.
Awesome.
help anybody that I can. I also, talk about a lot of the things that we've talked about here today so that people can also go through some of that stuff as well. So thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, Stephen, I want to thank you so much for being a guest. It's been great.
It's been a pleasure. Really. Thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.